Started, Prabhu?
Yeah, you can start, Prabhuji, now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances to all the devotees who joined in this Zoom meeting. Thank you, Sundaranand Prabhuji, for giving me this opportunity to read today's Bhagavatam's translations from Canto 7, Chapter 2, Hiranyakashipu, King of Demons. Uh, and let me start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudharayet. नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैस्तिकीम् हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे राम 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 हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे राम राम हरे. So today I will be reading the slokas 13 to 24 from the chapter 2, Hiranyakashipu, King of Demons, in the Canto 7. Sloka number 13. Thus the demons, being found of disastrous activities, took Hiranyakashipu's instructions on their heads with great respect and offered him obeisances. According to his directions, they engaged in envious activities directed against all living beings. Sloka 14. The demons set fire to the cities, villages, pasturing grounds, cow pens, gardens, agricultural fields, and natural forests. They burned the hermitages of the saintly persons, the important mines that produced valuable metals, the residential quarters of the agriculturists, the mountain villages, and the villages of the cow protectors and cow herdmen. They also burned the government capitals. Sloka 15. Some of the demons took digging instructions and broke down the bridges, the protective walls and gates, gopuras of the cities. Some took axes and began cutting important trees that produced mango, jackfruit, and other sources of food. Some of the demons took firebrands and set fire to the residential quarters of the citizens. Sloka 16. Thus disturbed again and again by the unnatural occurrences caused by the followers of Hiranyakashipu, all the people had to cease the activities of Vedic culture. Not receiving the results of Yajna, the demigods also become disturbed. They left their residential quarters in the heavenly planets and, unobserved by the demons, began wandering on the planet Earth to see the disasters. Sloka 17. After performing the ritualistic observances for the death of his brother, Hiranyakashipu, being extremely unhappy, tried to pacify his nephews. Sloka 18 and 19 together. O King Hiranyakashipu was extremely angry, but since he was a great politician, he knew how to act according to the time and situation. With sweet words, he began pacifying his nephews, whose names were Shakuni and Sambara, Drishti, Bhuta Santapana, Paktra, Kalanabha, Mahanabha, Harishmarshru, and Utkacha. He also consoled their mother, his sister-in-law, Rushabhanu, as well as his own mother, Diti. He spoke to them all as follows. Sloka 20. Hiranyakashipu said, My dear mother, sister-in-law, and nephews, you should not lament for the death of the great hero, for the hero's death in front of his enemy is glorious and desirable. My dear mother, Sloka 21. My dear mother, in a restaurant or place of drinking cold water, many travelers are brought together, and after drinking water, they continue to their respective destinations. Similarly, living entities join together in a family, and later, as a result of their own actions, they are led apart to their destinations. Sloka 22. The spirit soul, the living entity, has no death, for he is eternal and inexhaustible. Being free from material contamination, he can go anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds. He is fully aware and completely different from the material body, but because of being misled by misuse of his slight independence, he is obliged to accept subtle and gross bodies created by the material energy, and thus be subjected to so-called material happiness and distress. Therefore, no one should lament for the passing of the spirit soul from the body. Sloka 23. Because of the movements of the water, the trees on the banks of a river, when reflected on the water, seem to move. Similarly, when the eyes move because of some mental derangement, the land appears to move also. Sloka 24. In the same way, O my gentle mother, when the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of material nature, the living entity, although freed from all the different phases of the subtle and gross bodies, thinks that he has changed from one condition to another. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kiran Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Krishna Prabhu, whenever you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Okay, let me share my screen. Thank you, Kiran Prabhuji, for reading today's Bhagavatam slokas translation. Thank you all for joining for today's Bhagavatam session. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, 2nd chapter, from 13 to 24 slokas. So we'll start with the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjanasalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatta Deshatarane. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, thank you for giving this opportunity. So I am neither qualified nor realized to speak on this great transcendental literature. So for my own purification and for the pleasure of all the assembled devotees, I'll try to share a few points. So just to give a background, so in the last chapter, Maharaj Parikshit asked, based on his question, Sukadeva Goswami explained how the Supreme Lord is not partial. So then he also narrated the conversation between the Yudhishthira Maharaj and Narada Muni. So when Yudhishthira Maharaj saw how Sisipal got liberated, even though he is so-called enemy of Supreme Lord Krishna, so Narada Muni narrates the history of the Sisupala. So who are the Jai and Vijaya, like they came as the Sisupala and Dantavaktra in Dwapara Yuga period. And while narrating their previous births, he also mentioned how they are Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, and how he tortured, Hiranyakashipu tortured his son Prahlad Maharaj. Then Yudhishthira Maharaj asked, why the father Hiranyakashipu tortured his son Prahlad Maharaj. So what is the reason? And also he wanted to know how Prahlad Maharaj became a great devotee. So for that, Narada Muni started narrating the history of Prahlad Maharaj. So beginning with Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and how Hiranyakashipu was very angry when his brother Hiranyaksha was killed in the hands of Lord Varaha. And then he thinks that, Krishna became partial and supported demigods. So that's why he killed his brother Hiranyaksha. So because of that, he is very angry and he wanted to kill Lord Vishnu. And he also told his followers to destroy the people who engage in austerity, sacrifice, like that, so that the demigods they don't get the share from the yajnas, and they'll become very weak or die like that. So now today we'll go through the slokas from 13 to 24. So in the 13th sloka, so Hiranyakashipu's order, based on Hiranyakashipu's order, so the demons, so they are fond of disastrous activities. So kadanam vidudahu, like they want to kill the Vedic culture. So the reason is, it is also mentioned here, because they are envious of other living entities. So they are envious of other living entities. So that's why whatever the activities that they do, so they will be inauspicious for everyone. Jagato ahitaha, like that. So in the Bhagavad Gita also Krishna mentions that so these demons, they perform ugra karmanaha kshayaya jagato ahitaha, like that. In Bhagavad Gita Krishna mentions. So these demonic people, so whatever the activities that they do, they are unbeneficial and they are all horrible works, and they will destroy the world, like that. So they always engage in the sense gratification activities, and because of their activities, they'll create so many troubles to other citizens. So that's what we see in even Kali Yuga, like the modern society of education. So this they're training the people to engage in the sense gratification activities, even at the cost of others suffering. So that's why they manufacture so many things. So instead of helping the people to perform the good activities or the spiritual activities which help them to come out from birth and death, so instead of that, as the technology is progressing and the modern education is teaching the people to indulge in sense gratification. So that's why, so there are so many challenges and difficult problems like that. So similarly, the followers of the Hiranyakashipu, who are all the demonic mentality people, so they are all causing the activities which are suffering for the all other citizens. So we'll see in the upcoming slokas what kind of activities they have done like that. So in the 14th sloka we see that so they set fire to the cities, villages, pasture grounds, daduhu, like they burned. So and even the gardens, puragrama vrajatyona, like that. So in the purport Prabhupada mentions that so generally in the gardens, like when somebody has a enough space backside of their house, they have garden, like they grow fruits, flowers, vegetables, like that. And one is Krishna consciousness, they play a very important role, these things, these fruits, flowers and vegetables, because they can offer these things to Krishna. And Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, patram pushpam phalam, like these things, fruits and flowers, it can be offered to to him. Of course, when one offers with so much love and devotion, he will accept it. So these are things that helps a practicing devotee to do some service to Krishna. So they can grow the nice flowers, and then they can use those flowers to make a wonderful garlands for the pleasure of Krishna. So all their activities can be surrounded by Krishna, or can be done for the pleasure of Krishna. Samsiddhir haritoshanam. So in that way they can make their human life successful. So otherwise, if those activities are not connected with Krishna, then those are all shramayeva hi kevalam. So like whatever the energy, wealth or resources that we spend on those activities, so it will not give any benefit for us. So it's like investing all our hard-earned money in a bank which is going to go for bankrupt, like that. So not only that, they burned the agriculture fields, and they also burned the hermitages, the saintly persons where they stay, the saintly person stays, ashramas. So the thought process is so that the spiritual education will be discouraged, so that the general people, they don't get this education, or they don't get any inspiration to perform the yajnas, so where they can make their human life successful. So we can see as Kali Yuga progress, even many some of the governments, they don't support the temples. Instead, so they take the money of the temples and use for their own sense gratification. So even in the beginning of ISKCON movement in Russia, so we heard like the Russian government also used to punish if they see a devotee chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra or performing Sankirtana or reading Vedic literatures like that. So that is the tendency of the demonic society like that. So similarly here also the followers of Hiranyakashipu, they are harassing in so many ways. We see that they burn the important mines, residential quarters, and then mountains, villages, and also the villages of the cow protectors. So they have burned the government capitals like that. And they're continuing then the 15th sloka. There also the demons took digging instruments and broke down the bridges. So Bibhudihu Sethu like now. Because these bridges helps the water to flow in an organized way, so that this water can be used for farming by the farmers. And not only that, they are cutting the important trees that produced mango, jackfruit like that, chichiduhu like that. So because these are the sources of the good food, ajivyan like that. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that as per Vedic literature, so any tree that produces nice fruit, for the maintenance of the people, one should avoid to cut that. Because the human society depends on that. Of course, as Kali Yuga progresses, so people are cutting down all kind of trees for the construction of the big factories or buildings like that. So that's why Kali Yuga education, it teaches to the people simply living and no thinking. So instead of simple living and high thinking. So that's why people are very disturbed, upadritaha like that. So in the text 16, so the demons, because of their horrible activities, the people are disturbed again and again by the unnatural occurrences caused by the followers of Hiranyakashipu. And due to that, what they have done is they have ceased the activities of Vedic culture. So they were not doing the Vedic culture. And if they don't do the Vedic activities like yajnas and all, so the demigods will not receive the results of the yajna. So they also become disturbed. So it's Prabhupada mentions that when the humans they perform the yajnas, it will bring the good fortune for humans and also to the demigods. So in Bhagavad Gita also we hear that the demigods will be pleased when human beings perform yajna. So in that way they will supply all the necessities which are required for the human beings. Especially rains will come, and then due to that the crops will flourish, and people can get the food grains. Annad bhavanti bhutani like that. So so even people to live happily in this material world without any hunger, so one need to do yajna. Of course, the yajna prescribed for this Kali Yuga is to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we see that even the devotees, by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, are the practicing people, they not only purify themselves and all their sinful reactions will be destroyed, so that they can avoid the suffering. They also pleases the demigods, so that all the necessity things for the human beings will be supplied. So devotees, by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, they are indirectly helping all other living entities also. So that's why Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that this yajna, dana, tapa should not be given up. So it will purify, and also it will help other conditioned living entities. So that's why because these yajnas are not done, the demigods are not receiving. So these demigods, so they, unobserved by the demons, they began wandering on the planet Earth to see the disasters. And in the text 17, Hiranyakashipu here at their home, So after performing the ritualistic observance for the death of his brother, so he became unhappy, and he also tried to pacify his nephews. Of course, this is natural because when a close member leaves the body, then one will be very unhappy. So, so similarly here Hiranyakashipu is unhappy, and all his relatives are unhappy. So, but being the leader of the family, so he is trying to pacify his nephews. And we can see that how Hiranyakashipu is specifying in the upcoming slokas. So he says that though he is very angry, but because he is a great politician, so he know how to act according to the time and situation. So he is using the sweet words and pacifying the nephews. And here we see the names of the nephews like Sekuni, Sambara, Drishti, like that. And also his brother's wife, sister-in-law, or Hiranyaksha's wife, Rushabhanu, and also his mother, Diti. So he is trying to pacify with the sweet words here. So in upcoming slokas, we see that the Hiranyakashipu's pacification words, and from that we can see that Hiranyakashipu has a great Vedic knowledge. So he has that intelligence is there. We see that in the text 20. So he is addressing his mother and sister-in-law and nephews, saying that not lament for the death of a great hero, because for a hero's death in front of his enemy is glorious and desirable. And even in the last canto also, Vratrasura, he mentions his demonic followers. So when they are running away from the battlefield, he is saying that there are two ways one can meet a glorious death. So one is when they leave the body by performing the yoga process, especially Bhakti Yoga. So controlling their mind and focusing on their mind on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And when they leave the body like that, then that is a glorious death, and it is desirable. And the other way is to die in the battlefield and without showing their back, and that is also glorious, because they can be elevated to the higher planets, and they can get the in the next life will be better than what we have it here. But Prabhupada mentions that the best way of leaving the body is to be observed in Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada also mentions that when he heard one of his god brother passed away, so he was very unhappy. But when he came to know that his god brother left the body by chanting Krishna, Krishna, like that, and he mentions that that is a glorious death. So otherwise, just leaving the body without any Krishna consciousness practice, so then they are simply wasting their very important human life. So, so the Prabhupada, that's why he stresses also as a sadhaka, practicing devotee, trying to be a devotee. So one should try towards this glorious death. So at the end of the time, if we remember Krishna, Antakala Chamameva, then we can go back home, back to Godhead. And that is the highest perfection of the human life, and that is glorious and it is desirable. So in the text 21, Hiranyakashipu is very nicely mentioning that how the people in the restaurant, they come for drinking cold water like that, like many travels they come, and after drinking they will go away, so to their respective destination. So similarly, living entities, they join together as a family, and as based on their own actions, they will leave to their next destination. We see from this statement, so Hiranyakashipu is giving a very profound information here. And Prabhupada also mentions that so all the living entities in this material world, so they are coming because they wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna. So of course, not knowing that it is a miserable place, so they are coming here. So the family means it's a combination of several persons who want to fulfill their own desires. So it's, and also it is called a imprisonment. So in Prabhupada mentions that how in a prison So criminals comes together and based on their punishment for that how much duration they have to be in their in the prison. After their duration is over, they will go away. So they are separated. And Prabhupada also gives another example, like the family members are like a straws in the river. So when the waves of a river, due to the waves of river, sometimes these straws are comes together, and again due to the same waves of the river, so these straws will be separated. So similarly, people come together to fulfill their own desires, and then they be separated. So that's why here Hiranyakashipu is teaching that so one should not be not to lament. And Prabhupada mentions that the demons here, some of the demons, they have a great knowledge, but only thing is they don't use that knowledge or their intelligence for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, for the service of the Supreme Lord. So that's why these people are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita as Maya Prahata Jnana, because their knowledge is stolen by the Maya or illusion. So example like scientists, they are very knowledgeable. So they have the great memory and intellectual capability like that, but their knowledge is stolen by Maya. So they are misguided by the illusory energy of Krishna. So that's why they don't take shelter of Krishna. So but the demigods, they are very intelligent. So all they take shelter of Krishna, and all their activities they perform for the pleasure of Krishna. Samsiddhir Haritoshna. So that's why as a practicing devotee, we should also try as best as we can to perform all our activities for the pleasure of Krishna. So in that way, we can make our human life successful. So in the text 22, Hiranyakashipu is mentioning that so which is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, like the living entity has no death, and he's giving the description of the soul. So it is eternal, inexhaustible, and it is different from the material body, completely different from the material body. And we see that being misled by the misuse of slight independence, is obliged to accept subtle and gross bodies. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that so when one wants to enjoy independent of Krishna, then they are placed in this material world. They are influenced by the three modes of the this material nature. Karanam guna sango asya sad asad yoni janmasu, like that. So they will be placed into a material body. And of course, as they perform the activities, based on their activities, what kind of body they should get is also under the supervision of the higher destination, like under the supervision of the Supreme Lord, Karmana Daiva Netrena. And so in that way, they go through the miserable cycle of birth and death, and they'll continue to be suffering like that. So until they take shelter of Krishna, they'll continue this suffering like that. So that's why here says that they are subjected to the so-called material happiness and distress. So that's why no one should lament for the passing of the spirit soul from the body like that. And text 23, Hiranyakashipu is mentioning that because of the movements of the water, the trees on the bank of river, when reflected on the water, seem to move. So similarly, when the eyes move because of some mental derangement, the land appears to move. Prabhupada gives example like in a drunkard or some heart disease person. So sometimes they feel dizzy and their eyes will be moving, and they think that land is moving. It appears that land is moving. So similarly, the reflection of the trees in a flowing river also appears to move. So similarly, even though the living entity, the pure spirit soul, they does not move, or they doesn't take they don't take birth or death like that, sthanur achalamayam like that. But because due to their misuse of independence, the slight independence, and wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna, because they are influenced by these three modes in this material world, so they take the different type of the subtle or gross bodies. So even though the living entity is pure spirit soul, so it's not anything related to the birth and death, it appears to be moving from one place to another, like taking birth and death, like that. So Hiranyakashipu is trying to mention here, giving this knowledge that so whoever understands this knowledge, they will be undisturbed by the conditions that are created by this material nature, and then they will become successful, like that. So the last sloka for today. So in this way, Hiranyakashipu is mentioning that to his mother and all, like when the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of the material nature, the living entity, although freed from all different phases of the subtle and gross bodies, thinks that he has changed from one condition to another. So that's why Prabhupada stresses, or the Vedic literatures again and again mentions that one should come out from the bodily concept. So otherwise one will be no better than the Saeva Gokaraha, like they are as good as asses or cow, like that, like it's animalistic life, like that. Yasyadma buddhi konapeti dhaduke, like if one considers themselves as this body, the gross body, then they are no better than the an animal, like that. So Hiranyakashipu is advising here that although the gross body of his brother Hiranyaksha was dead or is no longer useful, so and because of that all the family members are grieving, but Hiranyakashipu is suggesting that they should not lament, because the soul of Hiranyaksha is moved to the next destination. So he is not destroyed. The actual Hiranyaksha, or the soul, pure spiritual, is not destroyed. Only the body is gone, like that. That's what Hiranyakashipu is teaching to their nephews, sister-in-law and mother, like that. So from this we can also understand that one should not to be so much attached to this bodily concept or related to the bodily things, and focus on the process of Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, and practice it sincerely and seriously. Of course, I am talking to myself, and perfect our human life. The best part of this human, the body that one received, this human life, can be used for the breaking this cycle of birth and death and go back home, back to Godhead, like that. So I'll pause it here. Thank you all for giving this opportunity. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Anta Koti Vaishnava.
Jai. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Shruti, Hare Krishna.